Courtney Comox.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. In this House, in the territory of the Lekwungen, the home of the Songhees and the Esquimalt peoples, it's my great privilege to rise in support of Bill 32, the Provincial Symbols and Honours Act, Amendment Act number 2, 2023, to recognize the elasmosaur as BC's official fossil. Now, I think we've heard the description from the previous speaker. That was going to be in my speech, but I don't have to do that now. And I'll give a little hint around how to say elasmosaur. If you think elastic and start with the elas, you get to the first part of it, and it's an elasmosaur. It's interesting because this is part of the point of raising the profile, is for people to understand and to be conversant about the rich history of fossils in this province. I want to acknowledge the folks at the Courtney and District Museum and Paleontology Centre, Deb Griffiths, the Executive Director, Mike and Pat Trask, twins who play a vital role in this whole story, and Dan Bowen, who I've known for a very long time and is one of those people who's always there to support and show interest and keep things moving. They brought this issue to my attention. Once, twice, multiple times over the years. The Premier and the Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture and Sport, and the Premier have been instrumental in being able to move this forward, and I appreciate their support, and I appreciate the support of my colleagues and those who've spoken in favor of the bill this morning. I want to also acknowledge the staff who've supported me. I brought this forward, and my communications officer was at my side at all times, and all of my staff helping support moving this forward. I want to thank the Ledge Council as well for helping draft it when it was a private member's bill, the House Leader and staffer Will Martman, because he was always open to hearing my relentless pursuit, and I'm just so pleased that we're finally bringing this to the floor. There's been talk about the survey and how the elasmosaur came to be the chosen fossil for the official fossil of British Columbia, and it was the work of the BC Paleontological Society working with the Heritage Branch and looking at all of a big collaboration, and then putting forward a public survey. It was a public survey that was done in 2018. So after the 48% for the elasmosaur, it was 15% for the, which one was it for? It was the ichthyosaur, which is about, it's north of Fort St. John. So then there was even a single-celled fossil from west of Kamloops. So there was a really wide variety, but I think the thing that I took from the impact was what the elasmosaur is actually. It's a vertebrate. It is a big dinosaur, and when it was discovered, it was instantly of great interest to scientists around the world. And it's something that we don't have a lot of in British Columbia, of vertebrates. Like the Royal BC Museum has a lot of invertebrates. Anyway, the choice was made in a very democratic process and moved along, but then kind of got stalled. And the purpose of a official fossil is to recognize them as an important heritage resource, and it conveys it to the whole wide world. It's not just a fossil that we all appreciate. It conveys to the world our British Columbian rich resource heritage. I want to say, and the priority is around scientific value and educational value. And Deb Griffiths, she's the executive director of the museum. She has some really special words about its contribution to BC's identity as a symbol of BC's expansive fossil-storied landscapes and regions. So looking at the contest, we knew we know we're a fossil-rich province, but did we know that it could rival the Royal Tyrrell Museum in Drumheller, Alberta? It's that opportunity that we have to really expand and grow that identity as a knowledge tourism base and a scientific base and an educational base.
Recognizing the member for Courtenay Comox.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And resuming my contributions to the debate at second reading of Bill 32, I'd like to talk about the purpose of an official fossil. First and foremost, it recognizes that fossils are an important heritage resource, and it conveys it to the whole wide world. Why? Fossils have great scientific and educational value, but there's so much more. Deb Griffiths' words about its contribution to BC's identity are quite poignant. As a symbol of BC's expansive fossil-storied landscapes and regions, that's the kind of picture you should have in your mind when you think about fossils. Looking at the contest, who knew we were a fossil-rich province, rivaling the well-known Royal Tyrrell Museum in Drumheller, Alberta? Here in BC, we have many places of fossil discovery, as we've heard this morning, that match the diverse landscape of BC today. An official fossil contributes to community identity as well as pride and wellness, economic development, with the draw of knowledge tourism and the pursuit of scientific knowledge and education. I'd like to share the story of the elasmosaur to enliven those values. It's an example of what fossils bring. Thanks again to Deb Griffiths from the Courtenay District Museum and Paleontology Center for much of the information and helping me to marshal my thoughts. Mike Trask and his daughter, Heather, were walking along the Puntledge River on a fossil expedition and came upon this incredible discovery of the elasmosaur. So that's the kind of thing that everyday people can do. I did it with my kids. It was a real adventure finding fossils and taking them down to the museum to see if they had any value. Mike went on a journey of 3 very critical steps. Steps that would, in Deb's words, continue to broaden and shape in BC's storyline of natural and cultural history. Firstly, he recorded the site, and he took samples. Then he delivered them to the Courtenay Museum. And lastly, he firmly expressed a preference for those fossils to remain in the community where they were discovered. As has been mentioned by members from the opposite side, there's collaboration with scientists from across Canada, within communities, and it happened immediately with the elasmosaur, because they recognized this important discovery, and later around the world, other scientists have been very involved in making more discoveries about this elasmosaur as they study it further. I'd like to mention a few notable folks who were instrumental. The late Dr. Rolf Ludvigsen, who was living on Denman at the time, happily, close to the discovery. Dr. Betsy Nichols from the Royal Tyrrell Museum. Dr. Richard Hebda from the Royal BC Museum. I'd also like to recognize the citizen scientists or amateur paleontologists, volunteers who work along the scientists. And that work, that collaboration, led to the formation of the BC Paleontological Alliance, and it also meant that there was work with the Heritage Branch, first through Forrest Flinrod, and now through tourism, arts, culture, and sport. I'd like to especially acknowledge Elizabeth Diome, who was there all along the way, excuse me, and other folks at the Fossil Management Office. And that is what led to the public vote for BC's official fossil. I'd also like to note that our local staff, excuse me, were trained at our RBCM. So let's go back to science and education. The contributions to science that came from this discovery has contributed to the growing body of knowledge worldwide. Excuse me, I'm going to just take a moment. I'll try again. It's contributed to the growing body of knowledge worldwide. And oh, everybody's got some lozenges for me. But I'd also like to talk about education. Education and the marriage with science, because it's an inspiration when you go out and you find a fossil and you get to be part of that scientific discovery. Pat Trask has been the curator and leader in these fossil tours, where kids go out to the riverbeds and get to do their own little digs. Well, I shouldn't call them digs. They get to explore the world of paleontology, because what we have are these concretions, these rocks that they can split open. And what Pat says to these kids is, and when you find something, your eyes are the first eyes to see this creature that was living millions of years ago, the last time that anybody saw them. And kids are just in awe of that. And it really inspires them to continue on into different pursuits like STEAM. It's also an opportunity to inspire them to choose careers in paleontology, become educators in paleontology. We have a need to increase those positions, to keep it alive and to keep it growing. Within our world, in Courtney Museum, they do school tours. And schools come from all over. They come locally, but they also come from Indigenous schools on the West Coast and up in the North Island. And we've had schools coming from as far away as Peace River, Alberta. It's something that it's growing, it's rippling out, the information is getting out there, and they're eager to come and learn. It's also, having an official fossil is also an opportunity to promote wellness. These are outdoor activities that you do with your family, with your friends. It's a learning experience, and they help develop a deeper appreciation of a sense of time in place. And it's done with family, it's done with friends. Diverse people gather together. It's an opportunity for community to grow. Around economic development, we're talking about knowledge tourism. It's married to education. And that's one of the big advantages of having fossils remain in their community. At the Courtney Museum, because of the elasmosaur, just in the fiscal year from 21-22 to 22-23, donations, because our museums are free, they are by donation entry, the donations are up 12.72%. Fossil tour revenues over that same time are increased 41.51%. There are more tours, fossil tours, on Vancouver Island than the whole rest of Canada, and very much overshadow tours in the US and around the rest of the world by more than tenfold. I want to acknowledge the support of the Kelowna's Museum curator, Dan Bruce, and the late Ursula Surtees, who was the executive director there, because they really taught the Courtney Museum staff to value that regional context by keeping the fossil at the local museum. And keeping the fossil there led to a huge amount of community support to showcase the discovery. At the time of the discovery, the paleontology section was a little house, but I'd want to call it a shack, that was just like a one-room building that was very old and falling down. And suddenly you had this amazing discovery, this marine reptile that was 12 meters long and the first of its kind ever found west of the Rockies. And so what happened was we had Community Futures. Mark Crane helped to buy the old post office across the street and renovate it for the purpose of being able to showcase the elasmosaur. Rotary clubs got involved. 1 year was spent fundraising so that they could create an education area, a room, a gallery in the museum that's used for educational purposes right in the midst of where the fossil lives. They've got grants for exhibitions. They got acknowledgement from all parties that represented the area provincially, including the late Stan Hagen, who got the Provincial Heritage Site designation for Mike's discovery. The city got involved to support them. The late Randy Witcher was a great supporter of the museum, and all of the comings and goings of the downtown to make it a really vibrant tourist destination. It really speaks to the community pride and the opportunities for economic development. And beyond the scientific collaboration that I talked about earlier, the Courtney Museum is working with other communities with fossils, like Tumbler Ridge, and really getting into the meat of how to grow regional museums and keep when your fossils are kept on site. And of course, economically, there's spin-offs for local businesses that can benefit from that tourism that's coming from all over the world. Families come on those knowledge tourism tours just to see the elasmosaur. There's merchandising. I've seen on the shelves toys, books. There's a book about Mike and Heather's discovery. There's art, there's even coffee, and it's all fossil inspired. I was just yesterday meeting with some of the Comox First Nation who came for another event, and as we were walking the halls, I was saying how Deb Griffiths had been pondering whether or not some of the mythical creatures that Comox First Nation have shared with us for many ages were maybe inspired by the elasmosaur, and they agreed that, there's been that talk, because we're talking about millions of years, and they were the first people that may have been able to find the fossils. And talking about tourism, my dream is that we're going to rival Jurassic Park film and have an underwater marine reptile adventure film. And I think if we get this passed, I'll see what I can do to have stars made out of some of the MLAs. I would be remiss if I didn't point out the most pertinent reason for having an official fossil, and that is it will support the fossil framework that the minister mentioned earlier. It draws attention to how fossils are treated as the heritage resource that they are. What does that mean? First of all, it's not finders keepers. Fossils are owned by the Crown. They can't be sold or exported out of BC without authorization. Collectors can, if they find small amounts of common and abundant fossils, as long as they're not scientifically significant. vertebrates must be reported to either the local museum, the Royal BC Museum, or the BC Fossil Management Office. And as I said earlier, no digging. You can't be getting fossils through excavation. It's only surface collection. So what should you do? You should take a photo if you can, mark the location, and be sure to report it. And why is that? Because you could be part of valuable information with your discovery, and you don't want to lose it. I'll just conclude now by reminding members that we are a fossil-rich province in many corners. We have an opportunity to capitalize in building scientific knowledge, expanding growing communities and community well-being, and pride in every corner. I want to acknowledge the focus and passion of our local paleo citizen scientists and the driving force of our regional museum people like Deb Griffiths. My fervent hope is that this House will unanimously pass Bill 32 and with the elasmosaur as BC's official fossil, provide the certain legacy of BC's discoverers of this unique elasmosaur in their lifetimes. Thanks to Mike and Heather Trask. Heather has passed away in January, and Mike's twin, Pat Trask, for all the time that they have given us and all the opportunities for discovery that await us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.